among abortion opponents nationwide after its sponsor, Virginia delegate Kathy Tran, said in a committee hearing recently that it would technically allow abortion until the point of birth if a doctor agreed it was necessary. So Governor Northam, a Democrat, who was actually, he was misidentified as a Republican on CNN. Just an accident that always seems to go one way, not the other. Governor Northam, a Democrat, was asked about the bill in a radio interview on Wednesday, and his response only added to the controversy. Appearing to discuss what would happen if a child was born after a failed attempt at abortion, he said, quote, "The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired, and then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother."
No exception. There was a very contentious committee hearing yesterday when Fairfax County Delegate Kathy Tran made her case for lifting restrictions on third trimester abortions, as well as other restrictions now in place. And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth.
Right. So, again, I understand that this is rare, but rarity is not an argument. Right? I mean, you know what else is rare is strangling puppies. Other things that are rare, murder. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have moral discussion. So the rarity to me is not an argument because it's a question of principle, not a question of degree.
And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure and permit an abortion at that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor? Do you support her measure and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and
yeah, it's a pretty important piece of legislation, brother. So I was not informed. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what was said. Come on, this is your job. It's your job.
I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you first thing I would say is this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there
Although I think the bill puts it down to one, but that's sort of important.
There may be severe deformities. There may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this
Now, this, again, massive challenging situation. Nobody's going to just be able to wave this away through magic of sophistry and rhetoric. These are very, very difficult situations. If the child is only discovered to have a severe abnormality, then, of course, the question becomes, and I hate to put it down to dollars and cents, but these are very real issues. The question then becomes who's going to pay for the usually massive costs involved in caring for a child, a baby, that has some significant deformities or something like that. So this is a big, big issue. And later we'll hear, and we'll pause on this, where he says, well, men shouldn't tell women what to do with their bodies. It's like, okay, but the problem, of course, as everyone knows, is that it's mostly men who pay the taxes. So if a man can't tell a woman what to do with her body, then why does a woman get to tell a man what he should do with his body? Because you have to use your body in order to make money. If a man can't have a say in what a woman does with her own body, why does a woman have a say in what a man does with his wallet? Well, of course, we only don't think about that because of the, anti-male bigotry or sexism in society. All right.
Particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept.
Right. See, now he's in a challenging situation, right? And this is where the hot water begins to rise. Because he's saying infant, not fetus, right? So as soon as the baby is delivered, now it's out of the womb. Now it's an infant, it's a baby. It is not a fetus. Now, whatever your philosophical beliefs underpinning the humanity of the fetus, we all recognize that once you pass the magic portal, once you escape the snug harbor, then you are an infant. So now he's talking about an infant, and that is a big challenge, right?
comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if the infant would be resuscitated if that's what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
Okay. So the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. So in other words, the baby could be born, the baby could be alive, but the mother could choose to not resuscitate it, which basically, as far as I understand it, would not be legal under anti-infanticide. Like once the baby's out, then its life is protected, right? Like yours and mine.
And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So
again, we're back to the mother, not the father, but
really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions.
Right. Now he's all kinds of libertarian, isn't he? Isn't that fascinating? We want the government to not be involved in these kinds of decisions. Because you see, he's pro-choice. He's pro-choice. Now, what if you're a taxpayer and you want to choose whether you have to pay for government schools or not? Oh, you can't have choice about that. What if you want to choose what kind of weapon to buy? No, you can't have choice about that. Right? You understand? What if you want to choose how your tax money is spent? Oh, you can't have choice about that. What if you want to choose to have more restrictions on who comes into your country from an immigration standpoint? What if you want to enforce existing immigration laws? They don't seem to be
I need a battery
when it comes to things like that. But that's just an important point. They're not pro-choice at all. It definitely is a pro-death stance because you're killing, in this case, it appears to be, well, he's talking about an infant, prior to that a fetus. The Democrats are not pro-choice at all. And also, given that men in general are going to have to pay for this stuff, they're not pro-choice for the man.
Want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers. And this is why, Julie, that legislators, most of whom are men, by the way.
There we go. Most of whom are men. And how on earth could men understand what women need?
Way shouldn't be telling a woman what she should and shouldn't be doing with her body.
And do you think...
Right. See, now here's the problem, and this is sophistry on the fly. So he says that a man should not be telling a woman what to do with his or her body, right? Okay, but unfortunately, he's just talked about an infant, a baby, which is now outside of the mother's body. So this is a very, very different matter. And this, of course, is where the problems arise.
Multiple physicians should have to weigh in, as is currently required. She's trying to lift that requirement.
Well, I think it's always good to get a second opinion, and for at least two providers to be involved in that decision.
Why would that
these decisions shouldn't be taken lightly. And
okay, so
because it's powering me
about
up.
Not the legislation that was being proposed.
And so, I would certainly support more than one provider.
All right, let's...
All right, so some took, this is the Vox article, some took Northam's comments as an endorsement of infanticide. Quote, in just a few years, pro-abortion zealots went from safe, legal, and rare, that's a Clinton phrase, to, quote, keep the newborns comfortable while the doctor debates infanticide, said Senator Ben Sasse, Republican, in a statement on Wednesday. A spokesperson for Governor Northam told Vox his comments were absolutely not a reference to infanticide. Well, no kidding. And that they, quote, focus on the tragic and extremely rare case in which a woman with a non-viable pregnancy or severe fetal abnormalities went into labor. But you see, here's the challenge, is that the law itself, it goes back to her mental health. What if she's incredibly depressed and anxious and doesn't want
I didn't notice this yesterday.
Well, in the past, of course, this would be solved by having the baby and giving the baby up for adoption. But you see, you can't just say, well, this law, this bill is only about deformities and all this kind of stuff, because here, continuing the pregnancy, terminated pregnancy, mental or physical health, her mental or physical health. Now, I assume that her physical health, once the baby's out, is kind of a fixed item, right? So physical health becomes not a factor regarding the termination of the pregnancy after the baby's been born. But her mental health? Terminated pregnancy regarding her... So you can't just say, well, it's only about severe fetal abnormalities or a non-viable pregnancy. Now, of course, I'm no doctor. I do not know what is meant by a non-viable pregnancy, because to me, if the baby's out and breathing, well, it's kind of been a viable pregnancy. Again, correct me where I'm wrong, but it seems like a non-viable pregnancy would be, let's say, the baby is so deformed that it's almost never or won't for sure make it to term, right? That's a non-viable pregnancy, an ectopic pregnancy or something like that. Okay, well, you're not taking a life then because the life won't make it anyway, right? So non-viable pregnancy to me would be something that can't make it to term, but once the baby's out. And so, yeah, see, they focused on, this is interesting, this language, right? You always got to watch these tricky guys with their language, right?
Tricky guys.
They focused on. So he's talking about the tragic and extremely rare cases, severe fetal abnormalities, but focusing on doesn't mean exclusive to, right? Like, I'm focusing on the webcam, but I also have peripheral vision, so I'm seeing left and right. So, yeah, that's very interesting.
Actually,
Northam's words helped stir up a nationwide debate about one of several recent efforts to expand abortion access at the state level. Laws restricting abortion access are nothing new, having proliferated nationwide since 2010. But now, buoyed by Democratic victories in the 2018 midterms and anxious to shore up access in anticipation of a challenge to Roe v. Wade, abortion rights supporters and state legislators are backing bills that would roll back some of the earlier restrictions or introduce new protections for abortion rights. And while the particulars of the controversy in Virginia are unique, versions of it are likely to take place across the country as abortion rights supporters back legislation in purple or even red states. So Kathy Tran, a Democrat, elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 2017, 28 women chosen for the legislative chamber that year, she introduced this bill, HB 2491, earlier this year. And in a committee hearing on Monday, she was questioned about the bill by fellow delegate Todd Gilbert, a Republican. So he asked, how late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman? Gilbert asked, through the third trimester. Tran responded, the third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks. Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, Gilbert then asked, would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating. My bill would allow that, Tran said. Now, Todd Gilbert is focusing on the mental health of the woman. Being
organics.
You know, a lot of men and women are unhappy and mentally stressed about paying their taxes, about the national debt and its effect on children, on their children in particular, because all the children are born with, $1 million worth of debt these days throughout many Western countries. If you don't have the money to pay the IRS, it's very stressful. It really, really interferes with your mental health. So is that enough to say, well, you know, I've got a note from my doctor
What's
that
going on?
paying taxes is really stressful. So I'm not going to.
Oh.
Can I opt out? Mental health is a big issue.
We're in a
School is stressful.
glitchy state now,
I
aren't
find
we?
it very stressful that some parent could say, my child is going to school and learning about the joys of socialism. And that there are 4,000 genders. And the joys of master is very stressful for me. So I'm going to have to opt out of paying for it. Well, no, of course not, right? So mental health is very, very, this is pointing out. So if impair the mental health, not cause her to be permanently depressed, since nobody can even guess that. Impair the mental health of the woman. So she can terminate the life of the baby after dilation. She's about to give birth. The baby's crowning. Like, what percentage of the baby has to be out of the womb before it's protected by the fiery moat of the law? I mean, we understand this is not an argument from extremity. This is not a slippery slope argument. I guess this is pretty much a slippery slope. My bill would allow that, she said. So the bill would not actually change the time limit for receiving an abortion in Virginia. Elizabeth Nash, senior state issues manager for the Guttmacher Institute, told Vox it would change the number of abortions required for approval and broaden the health circumstances under which an abortion would be allowed. Again, very, very uncommon. She's ready to give birth, blah, blah, blah. 92% of all abortions happen in the first trimester, according to Planned Parenthood. Well, they would know. 1.4% of abortions happen at 21 weeks gestation or beyond. Third trimester begins at around 28 weeks, right? The UN ambassador Nikki Haley tweeted on Tuesday. Well, she's part of the UN, so. National Review ran footage of the comments under the headline, Virginia bill would legalize abortion up to birth. We need to trust women to make their own health care decisions, Tran said in a statement to Virginia's WSET on Wednesday. I regret that these partisan games have taken the focus away from where it should be, on the Virginian women who have asked for this bill to get politicians out of their private medical decisions. I don't know how to explain this. You know, it's a very confusing thing for me. Well, first of all, nobody seemed to have a big problem on the left. Like, none of the Democrats seemed to have any problem with the fact that Obamacare massively interfered with people's decisions about their own health and their own health care. Because you couldn't get to keep your doctor. The promised 30 to 40% reduction in fees never occurred. That you have to, like, you can be an old woman in her 70s and still be forced to pay through your insurance for fertility treatments for younger women. So this idea that, well, you got to trust women to make their own healthcare decisions. Well, I agree. I think women should be trusted to make their own healthcare decisions, in which case stop forcing women into Obamacare. Stop forcing women and men to pay for things that they don't want. And one of the things that makes healthcare so expensive is that everybody with an obscure ailment tries to get that obscure ailment hooked into other people's insurance plans so that they get the collective benefit of everyone being forced to pay for them. So, yeah, I trust women to make their own healthcare decisions? Okay. Can we trust men to make their own financial decisions regarding who they support, what they pay for, who they give their charity to? No! Right, so this idea that you get to just trust people to make their own decisions, the left doesn't do that at all. So that's first. The second thing is that it's not your body.
I think the game crashed
it's a baby.
Because of that
I don't know how to
pop-up.
explain this. Unless you still have an umbilical cord attached, Woody Allen style, to your mom.
Zero GPU usage.
It's not your body. It's a baby. I am not my mother's body. I was fed by my mother's body, but I'm not my mother's body and haven't been for, these 52 years plus. So I find this strange. You know, I have 2 kidneys.
Wow.
I guess I could have one taken out.
That
I
just
could
screwed
put it
me.
in a nappy. I could put it in a crib. I could try singing it to sleep.
Why would the
I
game
could
crash
splash
because
milk
of
on
a
its face.
pop-up?
Cut a hole, I suppose, and insert milk into its kidney innards. I could hold it up and try and teach it how to walk. I could take it to the park and put it on a swing. I could take it to a play center, have it roll down and slide. But it ain't ever
Bullshit, man.
gonna grow up and go to college. It ain't ever gonna challenge me. It ain't ever gonna roll its eyes at me, tween daughter style. It's not gonna happen. See, that's
Flat
my
bullshit.
body. Kidney's my body. It doesn't detach
Flat bullshit.
and
That's all it is.
grow and
Great
have
bullshit.
its own thoughts and its own dreams and its own ambitions and its own emotions. And you know what else my kidney can't do? It can't make another kidney. But a baby can grow up to be a human being to make another human being. So this idea that it's just this isolated, standing on a
Game
square
don't
space,
never
interstellar
autosave,
Dostoevsky solipsism of it's just the woman's own body. It's not just the woman's own body. Why is this? But it's just sophistry. It's got nothing to do with facts. Get politicians out of their private medical decisions. Great, then the government should stop funding healthcare, should stop subsidizing healthcare, should stop forcing people, like more than half of every healthcare dollar in the States is spent by the government. So of course, yeah, absolutely. Get the government out of private medical decisions. But that's not going to happen. Government's all over private medical decisions.
All right, they don't care.
So,
You're not going to force them
Of course,
to
everybody wants as much freedom
be
as possible and wants
consistent,
everyone else
so
to pay
fuck that.
for that freedom.
What's your solution?
Which means you get more freedom and everyone else gets less. Right?
Yeah, last save is at 10:30. What time is it now?
So she did tell the Washington Post, Tran, that she misspoke in her response to Gilbert's question.
Is
I
today the
should have
12th?
said,
I thought it was the
clearly
13th.
no, because infanticide is not allowed in Virginia, and what would have happened in that moment would be a live birth. Now, this I have some sympathy, real sympathy for. So she also said she has been receiving death threats since the footage of the hearing spread. She had not responded to Vox's request.
I don't have any
So
sympathy
that's
for that
very, very
bitch.
tough. It's very
wrong with
tough
you?
to receive death threats.
She's a killer.
I'm sure the irony is not lost on you that she's horrified at receiving death threats.
She's a stone cold killer.
Just it's terrible to be threatened with death, you see?
Oh, he's being sarcastic.
All right, so we did all of this stuff, and yeah, it is cold. It is cold. This is a baby. Conservative Washington Examiner. Of course, they have to say conservative,
Can't
right?
crash again.
Seth Mandel said, the inhumanity on display here is hard to fathom. The baby would be delivered and kept comfortable while its parents debated whether or not to execute it. And that's tough. Once the baby's out, Ben Shapiro weighed in, and yeah. President Trump said he was surprised to hear about Northam's comments. He said he'd watched video of trans remarks, calling them terrible. Do you remember when I said to Hillary, do you remember, this is Trump, do you remember when I said Hillary Clinton was willing to rip the baby out of the womb? That's what it is. That's what they're doing. It's terrible. So then, Northam's communications director, Ofada Hiskl, attempted to clarify the government's comments in a statement to media outlets on Wednesday. Quote, no woman seeks a third trimester abortion except in the case of tragic or difficult circumstances, such as a non-viable pregnancy or in the event of severe fetal
so
abnormality.
tragic.
And the governor's comments were limited to the actions physicians would take in the event that a woman in those circumstances.
So I think it did save 9 minutes
attempts
ago.
to extrapolate these comments
When I got into
bad
this
faith and underscores exactly why the governor
tractor.
believes physicians and women,
Good thing I
not
did that.
legislators, should make these difficult and deeply personal medical decisions.
But I still need to make that
Conspicuously absent, the father, who, of course, in these situations is, in fact, conspicuously absent. So that's not the law. The law says if you're unhappy, if your mental health is impacted, right? They don't just say non-viable pregnancy or severe fetal abnormalities. It's not what the law says. The law says one doctor certifies that your mental health is going to be negatively impacted. And how is he ever going to know that? Whether it's temporary or permanent, maybe some depression lifts after a day. Some depression takes years to lift. Some people can
Or
fake
some people
depression.
are permanent, like
How's he
me,
gonna know?
because of permanence.
Now, of course,
situations.
the doctor is going to have a woman saying, I'm depressed,
That,
so I want an
that
abortion.
modern
I'm
medicine
unhappy,
has
so I
no
want an
ability
abortion. Now, if he says, no,
to,
I don't believe you're unhappy, yeah, good luck.
much
Good
less
luck.
fix,
You may
even
have a long
address, or
time
alleviate.
to complain about you to your governing body. So, yeah, of course, he or she is mostly just going to right? Also, if the woman does get depressed and there's a problem with the baby, or she doesn't feed the baby, then he's going to be in trouble. So, whereas if he gives her the abortion, what's she going to do? Come back later and sue him for giving her exactly what she wanted? No, right? So you understand, there's no barrier here. If there's no objective test, then there's no barrier at all. All right. So, governor said the governor had absolutely not been referring to the euthanasia of infants born after a failed abortion. He said...
You get some more
spokesperson said the
compound,
governor's
actually.
comments focus on the tragic and extremely rare case in which a woman with a non-viable pregnancy or severe fetal abnormalities went into labor. I don't know. That is not... it's not what the law says. It's not what the law says.
That's what he's talking about. What
All
his
right,
comments
so this is what I meant.
were.
He supported having at least 2 providers involved in the decision. The current law requires 3, and this new law would require only 1. So, yeah, it's pretty important. So Matthew Lee Anderson, the founder of Christian politics and culture website Mere Orthodoxy, told Vox, it seemed like he was really raising the possibility of making a deliberate decision to let an infant, even who had been resuscitated, die because of considerations like the mental health of the mother. That would be in accordance with the law, Matthew. I agree with this analysis. And this is kind of tricky, right? Because they'll insert something like the mental health, and then they won't talk about it and just talk about severe abnormalities and so on, right? A doctor could argue, for instance, as Anderson says, a doctor could argue having a child with Down syndrome would negatively impact a mother's mental health. Anyway, so we understand all of this stuff. It's very, very tricky. So let's bring some philosophy to bear on this situation, which is very, very important. So here's where you and I are probably going to part ways. And you may call me cold. You may call me nasty. You may call me vicious. Fully aware of all of that. But my sole
But I
concern
support
here
killing babies.
is
I don't care if you call me
keeping
nasty and
babies alive.
vicious.
Now, first
Wait,
and foremost, we pay
I didn't
to
hear what
keep
he
people
said.
alive all the time. Keep aware of all of that. Part ways.
We might part ways. We gotta kill them babies. Gotta kill them babies. You might call me nasty and vicious. That's what we gotta do. I think I had made an extra storage here. Yep, let's get that going. Alright, let's see what he's gonna say. We gotta kill them babies. I don't think he's gonna say that. Let's see what he says for real.
And you may call me cold. You may call me... Here's where you and I are probably going to part ways. And you may call me cold. You may call me nasty. You may call me vicious. Fully aware of all of that. But my sole concern here is keeping babies alive. Now, first and foremost, we pay to keep people alive all the time. We pay for people to be in iron lungs. We pay for diabetes injections, right? With insulin. We pay for
you make that generator
dialysis. We pour money into keeping people alive all the time. It's not like we're buying their life. It's not horrible. It's just...
Hey there, Diddles 1, 2, and 3. Let's let my playtime here speak for itself on that one. Let me... Why did changing that do that? Give me a second here. Oh, is it because the game crashed? The game crashed. I don't like the game crashing twice in about 10 minutes. But other than that, I've only played a few hours since the update, full release update. So I don't yet know how the game progresses. I don't know all the changes that have been made. But I did play this game for 40 hours in early access. That's what I was trying to demonstrate when the game crashed. Alright, it's showing up now. So you can see my Steam played time. And the game crashed again. I never had any problem with tabbing out of the game, other windows popping up, causing crashes in early access. But I've had several crashes now. Initial base parts, yeah, I only played this game for, I don't know, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, not counting the crashes. The time lost from crashing. So I'm working on, yeah, I'm going all the way back to 1030 again. So everything I just did, trying to catch back, I have to redo again. It's ridiculous. But I am lucky I didn't lose more because I had stepped into my tractor about 10 minutes before the first crash. So now I gotta go back and do everything I was just doing. And I'm not happy about it. Gotta create the storage again. Gotta collect this organic again. When I first got this game, like 2 years ago, it was so buggy that I considered it unplayable and didn't play it for a year. Now that the game is in a playable state as of the last update they did before pre-release, I played the game for like 30 plus hours. It's a great game to just chill out and relax and listen to some podcasts. Stefan is saying this may be cruel. Makes you think he would be pro-abortion. I knew he was going to be in favor of the babies, because I know his position on the issue, but I was just sort of joking around, like what a demon would say, kill the babies. That's a cruel position for sure. Probably the most cruel position you could ever take. Unless you say, molest the babies, then kill them. That's probably a little worse, but still enough to get you into the 9th circle of hell for the absolute complete disregard for innocent life. Have I seen any changes? Absolutely. Many little changes, some big changes. One of the big changes is they redid the tutorial, and I think the tutorial is a bit more helpful now. And I'm going to just save again. And so many little tiny things, like in the previous version of the game, if you had... Crap, I don't have any resin, so I can't actually demonstrate this, but if you had something queued up... Okay, let's queue up this. Alright, so if you queue up something to be crafted, you have the materials, it's ready to go. In the version before this, the last version of Early Access, you used to be able to hold E to start the print going. You wouldn't have to go examine and then press this button. The loss of that is probably the biggest annoyance that I have seen so far. Another pretty minor change is that now you have this item, the oxygenator, provides oxygen flow to tethers and power cables. So you need one of these, otherwise your oxygen goes dead. Now they could have been really mean and nasty with this new oxygenator mechanic by having it only be able to power a certain number of tethers or a certain distance. But as far as I can tell, you just need one somewhere on your tether line and you're good to go. So that's fine. It's just kind of a waste of a space somewhere in your base. It was way too buggy to play. I'd fall through the ground and die and lose everything just too many times to bother with it. But like I said, the version before this one was very good. Played it for a very long time, never had any crashes like I'm getting now. Alright, so let's save again.
How we apply our resources with for paper is keeping babies alive. Now,
I didn't crash.
First and foremost, we pay to keep people alive all
I'm gonna
the
get
time.
some more compound and resin over
We pay for
here.
people to be in iron lungs. We pay for diabetes injections, right? With insulin. We pay for kidney dialysis.
Still can't grab things when you're
pour money
inside
into
a
keeping people
vehicle.
alive all the time. It's not like we're buying their life. It's not horrible. It's just how we apply our resources.
Nope, the oxygenator does not
Society.
use any power, surprisingly.
Now,
Forgot to mention that.
we have
So you just have one of those built and you don't have to worry about it.
human life, which is a very, very important marketplace. We have in the marketplace of human life two symmetrical ones. The first is
Dang it.
married couples, just say married for the moment, right? Married couples who really want children, but who can't have them for some particular reason, right? Maybe the guy was in too many fail videos when he was younger and still has half a skateboard sticking out of his scrotum, but for whatever reason, 10% of married couples have significant problems with fertility. They get the miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies.
The vehicle still
often it's the
provides
women's
oxygen.
plumbing, which is Byzantine.
They didn't change that.
As opposed to the fairly simple straight shooters of the male testes. But the reality is that a lot of married couples want children and can't have them. So here you have a deficiency of fertility. Now, there are women who have children who don't want them. So what should happen? You see where I'm going with this, right? If our sole focus is in maximizing the number of children who get rescued from the brain-crushing forceps of the abortion doctor, then clearly we have a symmetry of market wants here. And that the mother's pregnancy should be subsidized if she's willing to give the child up for adoption afterwards. That will keep the most children alive. You say, oh, well, it's baby sales. And okay, e-baby, I'm sure, is taken, but yes, okay, we are paying money to keep babies alive. We do that all the time. The intensive care unit, the incubators and so on, are spent, we spend huge amounts of money on those to keep babies alive. What's wrong? What's wrong with this? It keeps babies alive. And you could, of course, you don't want women necessarily to turn into baby factories in order to make money, so you could just limit it to 1 or 2 babies or whatever. But yes, even babies with abnormalities, even babies with Down syndromes can be taken on. The other thing too, I mean, this is going to sound odd, but it's hard to argue against economically.
I need to build a trailer for my tractor, but I don't have enough research yet.
Women for babies all the time. It's called the welfare state. So in California, just for example, which has a far more generous welfare state than Sweden or Germany or France, in California, a woman who has 2 babies under the age of 5 can get over $30,000 in benefits, plus another $4,500 in Medicare and Medicaid. So she'd have to, like, that's $35,000, which she doesn't have to pay taxes on. So that's the equivalent of $50,000 or $55,000 in salary, right? So we are paying her for babies already. We're paying her for children. Now, I understand it's the mom and all that, but nonetheless, we are paying money to keep children in comfort. So if your focus is on keeping the babies alive, which, as a baby who was kept alive, I'm pleased that I was, and I'm sure you are as well. And we should start to think about this. We should start to think about this. These government solutions are terrible. I mean, we understand, right? There have been, 50 million plus abortions in the U.S. since Roe v. Wade, and there have been a not dissimilar number of immigrants coming into the country, you understand. This is a way of scooping out and replacing a population, because without immigrants, the Democrats wouldn't have won a presidential election since Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. So they want to replace the population because they cannot convince the population. And one way to do that is to encourage abortion and immigration, so that the domestic population has fewer children, which you can then replace with abortion. The other thing, of course, is that by far, the very best environment for a child to grow up in is a 2-parent household. Hopefully with the mom home, breastfeeding and raising the children, transmitting all those lovely cultural values that daycare workers from Guatemala are slightly less likely to do. So the way that all of this used to be sorted out was, well, you get married then, don't you? You get married. But that's tough. That's tough. Everybody wants sex for needy, greedy, selfish pleasure now, not use sex as the mortar that cements a long-term pair bonding marital family structure together. Right? We just want to indulge. We want to use sex like we use candy. And it's really, really tough. The hedonism that draws people to the left is hard to reverse. I mean, it's going to be reversed anyway, because the welfare state's going to run out of money relatively soon, but that would be my thought. I know it seems a little shocking. It seems a little appalling. I got into a very good debate in Poland about all of this. So if you're horrified at the idea of subsidizing a woman in return for her giving the child up for adoption, I guess you just have to ask yourself, is a dead baby worth it for that?
Soul Extractor was overpowered. If you have a good system for making the best use of it, I agree with that. That is why I have some soil canisters already filled with soil. But I think I'm actually a ways off from deciding to unlock and then start building that. Maybe not. It's only 750. I thought it was more than that. But there are higher priority things to build first. Also, they got rid of the vehicle bay and replaced it with the large printer, though the large printer is only for truly large things such as the shuttles and the giant storage platforms. And now things like the buggy you print on a small printer. I don't have the buggy unlocked, but it would be right next to the tractor, which I printed on the small printer. Medium printer will print the rover, medium and large rovers, which I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't have them unlocked. Some more interesting changes. I don't know why they felt that was a good one to make, but they did it. It happened. All right, let's save again, and then I'm going to... I guess I'll go on the surface, see if I can find some research. Though... I wouldn't actually be able to bring it back unless I get rid of this. But I need that battery. Let's just charge it up real quick. Actually, let's see how long the tractor can go just on its internal battery. So I tried this with the small rover once and the buggy, and both last less than 30 seconds. Pitiful. This seems like it might last you a minute. Barely. There's some more resin over here. Yes, this is the new Terran planet. It actually looks more like a Terran planet. It's got distinct mountains now. We've got some trees. This is the starter planet for sure. Probably nothing in here. Yeah. Goes to nowhere, just like the other mountain tunnels I've found. And I'm about to run out of power. So it's obviously meant to be used with a battery, but if you're in a pinch, it'll work. I was lucky to find 2 batteries immediately, because you can't make batteries until you get off-world. Unless they added lithium to the Terran planet. They added zinc to spawn on the Terran planet. Alright, here's some research. Normally, to get some zinc and get some mods going, you'd have to blast yourself off to the moon. We seriously need a tractor. But before I can get a tractor, I need research. Before I can get research, I need bits, and before I can get bits, I need research. So that's what I'm doing. 360 8.5 minutes is pathetic. Let's turn on this. Let's go get that other research. I need something to view now. I think I might have something downloaded. Alright, we'll check this out. It's not really a video that's up my alley, but I downloaded it. Might as well watch it. Maybe some new person comes to the live stream and thinks, this is me. This is my face cam. I didn't have it on tonight because I didn't want to set it up. Simple laziness. That's all.
I am a depressed 25-year-old woman who has a history of dating and being attracted to closeted gay men and men who are otherwise taken. I am diagnosed as depressive, anxious, and as a vacillator. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm painfully aware of how often I get taken advantage of. I am unable to speak up for myself and instead focus on pleasing others, leading me into getting burnt out emotionally and unable to focus on my own wants and needs. What advice do you have for me to be healthy enough to date a good man and to stop being attracted to gay or taken men? That's from Kathleen.
Kathleen, how are you doing this new year?
I'm doing well. How are you, Stefan?
See, this is...
Are you really doing well? Because, you know, when your fourth word is depressed...
They changed the appearance of some of the minerals. And they also increased the blast radius, telling people to defoo. Yeah. You know quite a bit about Stefan Molyneux, don't you? But as I was saying, first of all, let me say that the blast radius on these things is a lot bigger, so you got to stay pretty much max distance, or you'll take a ton of damage. They also now drop research samples, which can be scanned, which is kind of nice. And the seeds can either be planted to be regrown, or you can keep them for research on a research chamber. Now this is the new appearance for zinc. I don't know why they decided to add it to the Terran planet. I thought it was fine being accessible only on a moon. That's the easiest place to get it in the early game, but there it is. Spherolite. There's also some goodies down there. Just oxygen filter. Can he slide on command? I don't think so. I think he just slides when the slope is steep. I'm going to take that. Yeah, I don't know if they changed it so you can put research onto storage. I just assume that they didn't. But I should go and try and test it. Okay, let's see if this works. It does not.
Yes, I just want to check.
Yeah, doing as well as I can be.
1 to 10. What do we got?
Today is 7, 8. Pretty good.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good.
Good. Because, you know, it's nice for me to be talking about a 1 to 10 scale without it being some shallow physical attraction thing. So, all right. All right. Attracted to closeted gay men.
Yes.
I guess a lot of people would think that you're attracted to me. But what is it that is
Wait,
it
what?
obvious in hindsight? Like,
What did he really just say that?
it being some shallow physical attraction thing. So, all right. All right. Attracted to closeted gay men.
This doesn't work either. Lame.
I guess a lot of
Research
people
on
would think that
storage
you're
always
attracted to me. But
Not in the
what is
last
it that,
update,
is
or
it
the
obvious
last
in
version of the
hindsight?
game, and
Like,
not in this one.
Give me the lowdown on how that plays out.
Yeah, pretty obvious in hindsight. For the first of it, I actually knew he was doing this kind of thing behind my back for about a year.
He's being gay behind your back.
Yeah, like hooking up with.
Oh, wait a
Lowdown
minute.
on how that plays. But
Pretty good.
good. Because, you know, it's nice for me to be talking about a 1 to 10 scale without it being some shallow physical attraction thing. So, all right. All right.
This is too much for my power grid, but
Attracted to closeted gay men.
it's gonna have to do.
Yes.
I guess
I
a
only
lot of
need
people would think that
1,500.
you're attracted to me. But
Why would he say that?
attracted to closeted gay men.
Yes.
I guess a lot of people would think that you're attracted to me.
Oh, okay. He said, I guess a lot of people would think. I thought he said, I guess you would be attracted to me. Okay, yeah, what you said is right. That's what he meant. I misunderstood what he was saying. Wow. All right. Okay, is there anything else? Yeah, I could put this down somewhere. Wide mod, I don't really have the power to support that, so let's leave that for now. Guess I can get another canister going. When I'm in the mid game to late game, I run around with just tons of canisters, filling them up with soil. Then I just create stuff with the soil centrifuge. I try to put that thing to work as best I can. It's not really as useful on the Terran planet, but it is more useful on outer planets when basic resources are less visible. Medium storage, but not the small. Yeah, that's what I meant, the small storage. This is a new thing they added, Exodynamics Research Aid. Field Research Unit. Refill internal power supply to unlock. So you gotta connect it to your network. See if the tractor is able to push this, because you can't pick these up. And I don't have any copper yet, so I can't make extensions. But yeah. It's nice to have one right there, though. Very convenient.
But what is it that is it obvious in hindsight? Like, give me the lowdown on how that plays out.
Yeah, pretty obvious in hindsight. For the first of it, I actually knew he was doing this kind of thing behind my back for about a year.
He was being gay behind my back.
Yeah, like
Such an
hooking up
insult.
with men on Craigslist.
That's
would,
not very closeted.
He would lie about it. He would say that
Let's
he was
destroy
doing
these
that
from
just
max
because he
distance.
was lonely and he couldn't find a girl to do it with.
Wait, hang on. I'm sorry.
All right, check it out. Let me just demonstrate this real quick. So before, if you dug these out from this distance, you'd be just fine. but now you take a little bit of damage. You could do it from even closer, but I wasn't about to actually demonstrate that. Because it can one-shot you. That was how I died my first time, was not realizing they had changed the blast radius on those things.
Okay.
We're like 2 minutes in, we already get a big face palm.
Roll to do it with.
Wait, hang on. I'm sorry. Okay, all right. I apologize for I don't interrupt because I want to interrupt or talk. I interrupt because I really want to make sure I'm following. Like, I don't want you to go so far in the woods that I get lost, right? Because then who knows what I'm going to find in the woods? Who's going to attack me for it? So, are you saying that you were attracted to this guy who told you he was having sex with men?
Good metaphor.
No, he did not tell me.
What the?
I was looking through his emails and I was finding the evidence myself that way.
Okay, so why were you looking through his emails?
How far down did it go?
In security. I thought he was cheating on me, and this confirmed it.
The cyber stalker is coming from inside the house. Run. All right. So
yeah,
he's
so that's
going out and having sex with men, but he says
a problem.
He's just doing that because he's lonely.
Yeah. It would be when we break up and get back together. We break up, and then he would go out.
What the heck is this?
Actually, he would be.
I haven't seen this
creature
before.
Transgender. So he would be dressing up as a woman and meeting up with these guys.
And did you know that he enjoyed dressing up as a transgender?
Was this gas bag?
No, I didn't know until I found out from the emails I was seeing.
So you're going through his email, but not through his closet. Is that what you're telling me?
I did go through his closet and I found all those things as well. But, yeah, no.
Wait, you found a woman's clothing that he wore when he went out to have sex with men?
Yeah, I found the clothing, the fake boobs, the makeup that he had, everything.
And what did he say about that?
He didn't say much, and this is part of like my own security. He didn't have to
thought
say
it was
much
normal.
in order to keep me around. I would just believe whatever he told me. He said he was going to stop. It was just something
is this
he
not
would do
normal or something?
when he was doing drugs. He would do that just as a escape or a release.
Drugs
and I
were
believed him,
involved.
but it never did stop, and he continues to lie about it, and I continue to believe him.
Doing drugs?
Yeah, he was a meth addict when I first met him.
He was a meth addict when you first met him. Where did you meet him?
He was my boss. So
Whoa.
I met him at work. He was my boss, and he, yeah, that's.
And how did you know he was a meth addict?
He told me he had a problem with it, and he got clean about halfway through our relationship.
How long did you go out with him for?
2 years. So it took me about a couple months to realize that he was doing kind of weird
some decent
things behind my
research.
back. And I was in denial for a while. And about a year ago, I decided, I think you're homosexual or something. I just don't understand. Still, he was denying it the entire time.
So, whether the gay thing or the transgender thing, I mean, I
haven't seen that, but I've seen similar
you, right?
crazy stuff.
Yeah,
did you believe that you were in a monogamous relationship?
What is that?
We have the understanding that
There's
we
another
were
research.
monogamous, but I don't think he was living up to it.
Well, he wasn't, right? Because he was out there having sex with guys, right? While dressed as a woman and fighting off his meth addiction.
Correct.
The things I say. And,
Yeah.
do you have any concerns about any of the STDs he might have brought home from meth-addicted transgender sex with men?
I've been tested, so at this point, no.
I don't know if
So
I can
you're
refill
like
it with just one battery.
College kids oh no, you're like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, right? The bullets just happen to go all around you, which is very lucky, right?
Yeah,
Ouch.
I guess so. Yeah. very lucky about that. Very happy about that.
And what you said you have a history. Does that mean that this is not the first?
Yeah, no, it's not the. It's the first person I ever actually dated that was gay, but not the first person I've been attracted to. Not the first person that's been attracted to me, if that makes sense. Even though it's not physically attracted to me, but emotionally attracted to me. Right. The first guy I was ever in love with was gay. Everyone knew he was gay. He didn't want to admit it, but I just thought maybe I could get him to change for me.
Forgot about this.
Didn't happen. Ended up wasting like 2-3 years of my life chasing that, but
you were chasing this
I've done
guy.
It now.
Yeah.
And you thought maybe you could turn him, like doing a lot of upper body work and doggy style? I don't know. All right. Tell me a little bit. So you've
Stefan,
got an
that was
childhood
just
experience
wrong.
score of 5. We've got verbal abuse and threats, no family love or support, parents divorced, lived with alcoholic or drug user, and household member depressed, mentally ill, or suicide attempt. I wonder if you could touch on some of that history.
Yeah. My
How the heck am
father
I
is
getting out of here?
alcoholic. My mother is addicted to cigarettes. My sister was
I heard gas
suicidal.
bag.
I was diagnosed as a vacillator, which comes from a family of extreme neglect and abuse.
Yeah, they changed the model for the
I know
gas
what
bags.
vacillator means, like extremely indecisive, if not ambivalent, and so on. But is that a technical term?
Yeah, it's I don't know if you're aware of like the attachment styles. It's the fearful avoidant attachment style.
Okay,
It's
got
just another word for it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I avoid getting close to people even though I really want to. And
I might be able to get out through here.
Comes from like severe neglect.
How old were you when your parents divorced, Kathleen?
Okay, I remember seeing that thing.
Right. And the depressed, mentally ill, or suicide attempt as far as household member goes?
Yeah, my sister was suicidal when I was. She was starting to get really depressed when I was around 9. So probably from the divorce, and then after that, it just got worse and worse. So suicidal maybe when I was 16, 17.
Older than you, I assume, right?
Yeah.
And what do you know about your infancy?
I was not raised by my mom. I was not raised by my dad. I was raised by babysitters.
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet.
That kind of impacts
or I could just
my
put
ability to attach to people. I don't
like a solar panel or a wind turbine
people.
and attach it to the
One
thing.
of the babysitters was found out to be abusive,
But
physically abusive. I don't remember any of it.
When do you start to remember?
I have not tried
I
those
started to have
ideas
memories
yet.
right about 9 when we moved out of my dad's house.
So I remember seeing this from above.
Or anything?
Yeah, I don't remember much before that.
Okay, do you remember how old you were roughly when your first memory shows up?
Come on.
Like the first one? Yeah, I remember maybe like 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually remember one when I saw my grandmother for the first time, and I did not like her. But I think I was a baby when I saw that.
So you said something that was interesting, that you don't feel comfortable getting close, right?
Yeah, correct.
I don't agree. Which is nonsense. I understand that. Like, we've just met.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you honestly sort of what I think.
I've had
doesn't mean
good
that I'm right.
experience.
And I'll tell you the framework
driving
that I work
caves
with this kind of stuff.
when I don't
Let's see
forget
if it makes any sense to you or not.
that I dug a big hole in the ground.
I'm no professional, but I think that you very much do want to be close to people, but I think it harms your existing family structure if you're able to achieve it.
So you need to defoo immediately.
In other words, if you have parents with whom you are not bonded, then if you bond with someone else, then the emptiness of your relationship with your parents will be revealed to you, which they don't want.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if you grow up with a really bad cook, you don't know how bad a cook they are till you taste a really amazing meal, right?
Right.
Really?
And so if the bad
I didn't even
cook
see this.
wants to pass herself off as a good cook, then they need to keep you away from good food, right?
And that'll
Because
probably
the moment you taste
kill
really
me
good
if I'm
food,
not
you'll be like,
careful.
stuff you made is shit. Right?
Okay, I see that, because when I was growing up, my mom didn't like me to have friends, and so when I got close to my friends, she would always tell me that the person was a bad person, I shouldn't be friends with them, and then I would end up leaving that person and being alone, so I can kind of understand what you're saying.
Well, she wouldn't want you to have allies, and she wouldn't want you to taste the sweet nectar of intimacy and connection with others, because that would threaten the non-bond that you would have. Like, the reason why this popped into my mind, I was just thinking about this the other day. My mom, bad cook. Bad. Let me tell you, this is the sound that I shouldn't laugh. Now it's enough time has passed, right? So this is the sound, Kathleen, that I used to wake up to most days when I was a kid.
All right, I need to get up there.
And that sound, my friend, was my mother scraping the burnt carbon off toast that she had overcooked.
Oh, man.
You ever do that? I mean, occasionally it happens, you know, for whatever reason, somebody's been like the toaster thing, and you, right? And she would shave this thing, because we didn't have a lot of money, right? So she'd shave this bread down to the point where it was like a knife blade or something, like half a piece of bread there, and it still got enough carbon on it that you could turn it into a sketch pencil. And she was just bad. I mean, the food was just bad.
Yeah, she
was
needs
overcooked, and she had this weird addiction. Or not weird addiction because she was German. Dark, ugly, vicious German bread, like something you could use to tile a houseboat on a like the roof of a houseboat on a river, like just bread that's just dark and evil and full of bits of I don't even know what. And putting butter on it doesn't help. And she'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to make you some, what they call in England, biscuits." Cookies, I guess. I'm going to make, and I would get these, like I used to love these. Occasionally I'd get them digestive cookies with like the chocolate on top. Was so good. And
I'm glad we're talking about you, Stefan.
And I'm going to make you these biscuits, and they would be like these things that I don't know what you'd use them for, maybe slingshot weaponry or something you'd put underneath the leg of a couch so it wouldn't scratch the hardwood or something, but it was like just lumps of things that looked like rocks and tasted worse. My wife is a great cook. I mean, healthy, nutritious, fantastic.
Go. This thing doesn't have much power.
But, so, to me, it's all about the language that we use to describe these things to ourselves. When I was growing up, I was somewhat nervous sometimes about getting close to people. The reason being, and I understood this once I did finally get close to people, once you're close to people, you realize just how crappy those other relationships are. Like once you taste really good food, you realize how bad a cook you might have had in the home.
All right, so this doesn't lead where I'm trying to go directly, but
right, so
might work.
You want to connect to people, but your parents don't want you to connect to anyone, in my opinion. And so it's not your parents who are attracted to it's not you who are attracted to closeted gay men and men who are otherwise taken. It's your parents who want you to pursue those relationships to normalize
Here's where he gets
the distance
really,
they have with you. In other words,
bizarre.
You can go to anyone's house, says your bad cook mom, you can go to anyone's house as long as their moms are terrible cooks as well.
Crap.
That way, the crappiness of my cooking never becomes real to you.
Go up more. All right, here we go.
You chase the unavailable men to protect the unavailable parents.
So am I doing that subconsciously, or is that
that's the question. Like, I never really thought that I would ever do something like that.
I mean, are they aware that
I don't really think that I'm doing that, but
relationships, or was it subconscious for them?
Which matters? Why? Why does it matter? I'm not saying it doesn't.
Because it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. People don't.
I guess I'm very analytical, so I like to understand why things work.
What
Just
does it matter
trust
if it's
me.
conscious or not?
Just trust me.
I guess I want to know how much.
You got to
Okay,
defood.
let me put it to you this way. Let's say
Defood.
that you're being hunted through the jungle by two beings.
No more
one is a
meth
tiger,
guys will
one is a man
hit on
with
you.
a gun. Now, is the tiger hunting you instinctively?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Because he says the
hunting you
same.
consciously.
He said this. All right, I've listened to hundreds of these calls. Oh, great. Great. All right, I've listened to hundreds of these calls, and he's got basically a formula that he follows. Whatever the person is calling in about, the person's parents are either trying to get them to do whatever the problem is because it benefits them, or they are trying to prevent the caller from getting what they want because, again, it benefits them. And here he is. Your parents don't want you to meet gay, non-gay men because it allows them to keep control over you and not have to account for the isolation that they sprung upon you. And he got this just from her saying, yeah, my mom would tell me that some of my friends were bad and I should stay away from them, and as a result I would be alone. Maybe they were bad. Stefan didn't ask. He didn't ask what's wrong with those friends that she would want to do that. He just goes and sees the opportunity to launch into his formula that he uses in just about every call. Not every call, but just about.
Yes?
Yes, he is. Does it matter who
I'm
catches
falling
you?
again.
I guess not.
Doesn't
No.
matter. It
I
doesn't
think
matter.
that's just me trying to rationalize it so I don't have to deal with the emotional part of it.
I know. The moment you say analytical, I know how this story goes. So,
Come on.
it doesn't matter whether
This
it
tractor's
is
low power.
instinctual or conscious or not. It
Buggy
doesn't
or
matter.
Rover could get up here,
And I'll
no
tell you why
problem.
it doesn't matter. Because we're all responsible for knowing
But I
ourselves.
made it.
This is a commandment as old as Socrates, 2,500 years ago. The central canon philosopher
This area's not built for
of the Western tradition, Socrates himself,
traversal.
said the first commandment, know thyself. So, if something's unconscious or conscious, it doesn't matter. Because if somebody's conscious of it and they're doing wrong, then they're bad. But if somebody has avoided self-knowledge to the point where they're doing it unconsciously, then they're bad because they've avoided self-knowledge. It's sort of like saying, is it better or worse if someone drives into your house drunk or sober? It doesn't matter. Because if they're sober, then they're really bad and probably aiming at your house. If they're drunk, then we can say, well, they have less responsibility for hitting my house, but then they have full responsibility for getting
I should have
drunk.
brought the storage in here.
It doesn't matter.
I don't know why I forgot that.
What matters is your house got hit. And the person is responsible. Say, well, I was drunk. Okay, well, then we get you for drunk driving rather than careless driving. Doesn't matter. So if somebody is doing something unconsciously, then they are responsible for that because they did not take the effort to learn about themselves, to know themselves.
Prove
and the
this
self-help
area.
movement has now been going on for long enough, like the Oprah section of the bookstore. It goes on and on and on. It's like half the bookstore, it seems like daytime TV, Dr. Phil, you name it, right? Super Nanny, you name it. The Freudian revolution was 130 years, or whatever, right? The Jungian revolution was less than, but this need for self-knowledge, this need to know yourself, the understanding of the unconscious, this has been going on way north of a century, and in terms of popular culture, way north of 30 to 40 years. So there's nobody, like, you could claim in the 19th century, oh, I didn't know smoking was bad for me, despite the fact that I cough out half a lung when I run up the stairs. But is there anyone now
I actually don't have any of
who
that.
can be forgiven or excused on the basis that they had no idea smoking was bad for you? Of course not. Because if somebody genuinely doesn't know that smoking is bad for you, it means that they've avoided the information. So if your parents did it
know if these
unconsciously, they're
despawn.
still responsible for not knowing themselves enough to know
Fear
why
that
they
they
did what
might.
they did. Right? You can't parent unconsciously any more than you can drive drunk and claim it as an excuse. You become a parent, you are damn well responsible for knowing what
That's
makes
enough.
you tick, for knowing the landmines of your history. You are damn well responsible for everything you do as a parent. You say, well, I didn't know, I did the best I could with the knowledge that I had. I don't care. if I get behind the wheel of a Cessna airplane, behind the joystick of and I just randomly push a bunch of flaps and take off
Yeah,
and
the
crash,
wheel.
and I say, well, I flew the best I could with the knowledge I had, what would people say to me?
You shouldn't have done it.
That's right. You don't get into a plane and fly it if you don't know how to fly. That's
Dr. Phil has
and
a ranch.
I crash into someone's
know
house.
that.
They sue me or I'm charged, right? Well,
Looks like I
I
dropped
say, well,
some
but I did the
stuff
very
here.
best I could with the knowledge I had. I flew the very best I could. People wouldn't say, well, you know, he did the best he could with the knowledge he had. It's fine. They'd say, no, you don't get into a plane and fly it if you don't know what the hell you're doing, and you sure as hell don't have kids.
Okay, that's not how it works.
If you don't know what you're
Stop it.
And the knowledge that
Stop it, Stefan.
childhood trauma leads to adult dysfunction has been common knowledge throughout the West for more than a century, and artistically, even before then. Even before then. The child is the father of the man, says the old poem. And the idea that childhood trauma leads to adult dysfunction
Okay,
means
looks like I
that
wrote
if
the
you
wrong
have
way here.
had
But I want to see
an
what this
abusive
green thing
childhood,
is.
if you've been abused as a child,
There's some
you
research.
are in a high-risk category for dysfunction as an adult, and in particular as a parent. Everybody knows that. There's nobody around, at least in the West. I don't know, maybe somebody from Somalia or whatever, but there's nobody in the West who can claim that they had no idea that childhood dysfunction might lead to adult dysfunction. Everybody knows that. This is very well understood, very well talked about. Very well. It's as certain as the link between smoking and lung cancer, and as well understood in the general population. It's like saying, well, it's true I did have 30 tequila shots and then got behind the wheel of a car, but I had no idea that those 30 tequila
see.
shots could possibly
realize
impair
that.
my functioning, or my motor skills, or my reaction times. Nobody would believe that, right?
Right. So it doesn't matter if she was doing it subconscious, consciously, because in the end of the day, she shouldn't have had kids, and she should have done better.
Well, if you choose to have kids.
I should move on from this point, not necessarily caring about that.
Well,
aspect of
no,
it.
you're trying to make a differentiation where you get to put them in a category wherein they have less ownership. Let me put it to you another way. This is a very brief analogy.
Yeah,
Let's say I
doubt
go
that.
to the local Humane
no,
Society.
this is the
and
same
I pick up
boy.
a dog, and I sign the papers, and I take the dog home, and I don't feed the dog, right?
Okay.
And the dog dies, starves to death in the most horrible, vicious,
We can
evil
get
way,
out of
right?
here.
And I say, I
And
don't
then
know,
we'll
I
patch
never
this
read
hole
anything
up.
up about dogs. I didn't know how much food they needed. I didn't know that they needed any exercise. I don't know. What would people say?
Come on, turn.
They would say you were foolish. You shouldn't have gotten the dog.
Yeah, you get the dog.
No. You don't
You
want
have
to
to
turn,
read up on
then
You are
just have to do
responsible
this.
now that you've taken the dog. Like you bring that child home from the hospital. It's like bringing the dog home from the Humane Society, often to the Inhumane Society. But you know, if you don't want the kid, you can leave the kid at the hospital. They'll find a home for it. You can drop the kid off at a fire station, at a police station, at a
Nope,
hospital.
don't
You
do
can.
that.
You don't have to take that kid home. You could say, I waive my parental rights, and they'll take that kid and they'll try and find a home for that kid. You're off the hook, and you can do that anytime. As a parent, anytime, you can take that kid and you can drop them off with the authorities, and you're off the hook. So you keep that kid. You take that kid home you take that baby home from the hospital.
I don't think that was the same
And
pit.
you are damn well responsible for
Still
knowing
a
how to treat
problem,
that
though.
baby well, which means you better have read up. You better know how to take care of that baby.
Or what? You're just going to
And
look
there
at
are
them
enough
sternly?
parenting books out there. Parent effectiveness
Not how
training.
the
I
world
had an
works,
expert on the
Stefan.
show a couple of years ago. I've talked about it repeatedly on the show. It's a pretty good system. My own talks and thoughts about peaceful parenting are, I think, fine. But no, you're responsible. If you take a dog home and you beat it with a hot iron and you say, well, I thought that's how you were supposed to discipline dogs, people would say, well, is there any dog book that recommends that? And you say, well, no, but I just kind of made an assumption. Well, then you're guilty because you need to read up. You need to
Right.
understand how to raise children. So
Oh shit!
there's
I'm
no
out of
way to
power
get your
now.
parents off the hook, with the exception of if they had some sort of biological mental impairment.
All right.
In which case, it falls to the
All
extended
right.
family to intervene, right? So this is my concern, that the moment I put moral responsibility, because you said to me,
All
how do
right,
I
I can
stop
power it up
chasing after these gay or taken men?
like this
Well, you have to stop obeying
from my
the
base.
alter egos in your mind that are still squandering your happiness for the sake of their own self-protection. The question is not, why do you chase unavailable men? The question is, who loses out if you stop? It's not you, right? You don't want to be dating meth-addicted, closeted gay cross-dressers, right?
Right? No.
Not a lot of future in that market. So there's no
Definitely not.
benefit to you to do it, which must mean if you're doing it and there's no benefit to you, there's a benefit to someone else, right? Because we don't act randomly. And the thing that we do as children, this is the great power of parents, Kathleen, as you know. What do we do as
Damn it.
children? We conform and obey, and conform and obey, and conform and obey. For the simple reason that children who did not
Let
conform
me
and
hit
obey
that hole.
did not
I think it was
survive.
over here.
There were often not enough resources for all the children to survive throughout our evolution as a species,
Is this where that thing fell down?
which meant that
To the
parents
ground.
had to choose who would live and who would die, who would get food and who would not get food, who would be protected from the predators and who wouldn't be protected from the
Oh,
predators.
my sister then. For sure that would be my sister, not me.
Go on.
That my sister would be the one always getting the resources, getting the attention. And I actually wanted to talk about something you were talking about with Trevor earlier today.
Wait, sorry, let me just finish it'll take 30 seconds, right? So given that our parents got to choose who lived and who died through a lot of our evolutionary history, because there weren't enough resources to go around for everyone, parents would tend to choose the children that pleased them the most, and the children that pleased them the most were the ones who conformed the most to parental expectations and emotional preferences.
Okay,
and
here's
so all of us are like the precious egg handed
Here
on a chain
is
of dying
some
limbs
more
throughout history,
speculation,
and that egg is
evolutionary
conformity and compliance with
psychology.
parental wishes and preferences. That's what enables
Really
us to
shaky
survive. So the
ground.
fact that you may be complying with self-destructive parental wishes
This is
is
a pretty
entirely
bad call for
inconsistent
Stefan.
with,
He's
I think,
usually better than
our
this.
evolution, but that was all I wanted to say, and you were going to mention something I talked about earlier.
Yeah, yeah. You were talking to Trevor about if
Come on.
honesty about what you want destroys the chance of getting what you want, then you lie.
Alright.
And I think that's what I learned I had to do when I was young. So it kind of plays into this whole topic. If I wanted to talk to my parents, connect with them emotionally, I would have to gossip. I would have to either talk bad about someone I knew or talk bad about someone, about myself. And so, yeah, I mean, I would have to
Wait, why does my backpack have
gossip,
nothing
and
on
I
it?
think that's what my
Oh.
mom.
That's just a visual bug, but it is a
supported me
bug. I see
dating
nothing on my
horrible men
backpack.
because then she would have something to gossip about.
Well, and someone to feel superior to, right?
And I can't get
Yeah.
up here.
That too, definitely.
Why did your parents split up? Do you know? I mean, not
I'm
the
gonna have
cover
to,
story, you know the real.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to figure this out.
I know the cover story. I don't know, I guess, what's real.
And what was the cover story?
My father was unemployed for years and years, and so he wasn't
But
working.
did he have a video log on YouTube?
No,
All right, just
I think this is for you.
He's referring to
Alright.
himself there for some
wanted to
reason.
know if we've circled back at all, but go on.
Yeah, and so he was unemployed, and he was an alcoholic, and my mom said he was abusive towards her, and he was he was a dismissive person. So
We hear,
he
yeah,
caused people to be avoidant of him.
the meth boyfriend.
And
Meanwhile, the
just
normal
general
guys
unhappiness
who
in the
are
house between my mom and him.
maybe
I
not
was
the most
so happy with my
exciting,
dad.
but
I was more attached
at
to
least
my dad than I was
stable.
with my mom.
They get nothing.
And when we got divorced, I completely
Steph will
dissociated.
probably make that
For
point
a
at
long
some
period of time, I stopped
stage in
talking.
this conversation. I've heard him made it before many times.
Well, it's all interesting, and don't get me wrong, but it just really jumped out at me.
Come
You said you
on,
were
really?
attached to your father and when we got divorced.
There we go.
Yeah.
Not when my parents got divorced, but when you and your father got divorced.
Jeez. Pain in the ass.
I'm not trying to catch you or trip you up. I just really wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I kind of think that's the way it was. My mother and my father weren't emotionally connected, and so I've been kind of getting the idea that I was.
All right, let's get some research going so I can get a trailer for this damn
to my
thing.
father, in a way.
Right.
To this day, I still try to please him emotionally. I get so anxious when I go see him, and so disappointed afterwards if he doesn't
Damn it.
respond well to me.
Okay, this is a little annoying.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Come on.
So, do you think that there's still this element of second wife with regards to your father?
I think so, yeah.
So your father, how would your father feel?
That's right. Meth Boy's going to take you on a wild ride as he
married to a strong, confident,
deals with drug dealers,
independent man.
Deals with
overdoses. I would never talk to him again, I think.
What do you mean?
Yeah, he's going to take you on a hell of a ride. I forgot
already
I had
don't
this
talk to
medium
him
generator.
much. And I see how manipulative he is.
But where's
and so if I was to marry someone confident and good, that would mean that I'm confident and I'm good and I'm not there yet.
All right, let's
But
try
if I
that
was that
idea
way, then
you
I
mentioned.
would not want to talk to him anymore.
Diddles.
So if you date dysfunctional men, you still have a
And
relationship.
see if we can
with
get
your
that
father,
research
which
thing.
he wants, I assume.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
he
almost
does.
like he doesn't want you to virtuously cheat on him.
I guess I could just open this up and then carry it one at a time.
I guess so.
But
Yeah.
Well, no, don't let me tell you anything about your experience because you already
What's the
told me
fun
that
in
you
that?
have trouble speaking up for yourself. It's just my thought. I mean, if it doesn't match with your experience, please tell me. I mean, I beg you.
Yeah, no, I think it's more like he wants me to stay a little girl forever.
Right.
all right.
Like we were watching a movie and a man raped a woman and then he told me, oh honey, he just did something bad to her. And I was like, Dad, I know exactly what happened. I'm 25. He said, no, he just did something bad to her.
Yay.
I was like, oh.
What is this?
Well, it's interesting because if he wants to stay,
Nice.
if in his mind you're something of a girl, why would he be showing you, or why would there be a movie with a rape scene?
Oh no, he lives in a convalescent home, and that was just what was on the TV.
Ah, okay. But I mean, if I was sitting there in some
Maybe
place
get some oxygen before I die.
my daughter, and like I would move or turn that off or move us away or something like that, right? It's just kind of interesting. Like, I mean, he says, "Oh, I treat you like a little girl," but then there's a rape scene that he comments on.
I don't think he had any control over the movie or any knowledge that that was going to happen.
Well, the moment it starts to happen, right? I mean, if you were a child, then you would be responsible as the parent for moving the child out of that vicinity.
Oh, this happened recently.
I know, I'm aware. I'm just talking about you saying he wants you to be a little girl, and he's talking to you as if
Get
you're a
some
little
carbon
girl.
going.
Right, yeah.
So I've
he
got
does.
Without,
the,
I mean, if you were a little girl, then there would be no
Medium gen.
possibility that you should see a rape scene, right?
Okay, he's in a convalescent home, so he's not actually able to move around a lot, and we were just in a common area, and the movie came on, and we were just watching it, and...
But
I
he
mean,
would then, let's say that this happened to me. I'm just, because
doesn't
you're
have
making all
to.
these excuses, which I understand, or rather your father's making these excuses. I would then say to my daughter, stop watching this, or find some way to turn it off, or whatever, right?
Compound aluminum.
Because
We
a
got that.
convalescent home shouldn't be playing rape movies.
Wait.
That's just a basic. Anyway, I don't want to get too
Small.
stuck up on that. I was just really, really struck by that. So would you say that your father was nicer to you than your mom when you were growing up?
Yeah, I was his favorite, for sure.
And was your sister your mother's favorite?
Yes.
And your sister became suicidal, but you did not, right?
No, for a while I was.
I'm kind of disappointed they didn't make the research chambers automatically pull
About 2 years ago.
research
Was
objects.
this during the time of the dating the closeted gay guy?
Yeah, it was when we first started dating, but it wasn't related to him. It was
Where'd
more
that aluminum
about
go?
my boyfriend before that. We had just broken
Oh.
up, and that was the hardest thing ever. So that's why I went really dark and really depressed after that.
And if you can remind me why you broke up with the other boyfriend.
I think I had a mental breakdown, to be honest. I was very abusive, even physically.
Towards him?
And no,
All right, we need some power. This is not going to
towards
work.
his dog.
You were
And,
abusive towards his dog?
correct.
Tell me about that.
I've actually not talked about that before with anyone.
It's all right. It's just between you and me.
Yeah, especially the way Stefan pursues these investigations of the childhood. He's looking for the negatives. He's looking for all the negatives, so all the negatives will come out. And if someone tries to provide positives, or as this caller was doing, she was trying to sort of say, oh, it's not as bad as it seems, by saying that the father had no control over what movie was being shown. And Stefan will say, like, oh, you're making excuses, and so it's really tough to say that he's being entirely fair when he does these investigations. And also, yeah, that's fine, I guess. I really need some resin is what I'm trying to get out here. I've got no more storage units. Let's just temporarily use this one. Tractor and trailer. I wonder if this works. Nope. Not really. Used to be you could do some goofy stuff with this. I guess that's not going to work on the tractor and trailer. Maybe with the buggies it'll still work.
Today, so it's all
right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Towards his dog.
You were abusive towards his dog?
Oh, it's almost midnight.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
I've actually not talked about that before with anyone.
It's all right. It's just between you.
I don't want to get into that. Save it for next time. So I'm going to bring the stream to an end around midnight. Appreciate you hanging out, Diddles. Nice that you actually know a bit about Free Domain Radio Show. I guess he doesn't really do that show anymore. He's really scaled back on the call-ins, unfortunately. I think this is his last video that he... Whoa. Bounce Vine Seed. Okay. Can be planted or researched. Well, I planted it. Let's see if I can... Yeah, it does damage. Yeah. Anyways, I think that this video is the last video that he posted from any of his call-in shows, as he has moved into doing some other things. But But I had this one downloaded and I hadn't watched it, so we're gonna give it a listen. Now let's get this glorious resin. And hopefully I'll find a research. Put that on the front of my vehicle. But the research here is incredibly low value. They've seriously cut back on the amount of research you can get from the research research objects. I don't know what they're really called, but there are more ways of getting just snap bits or snap bytes. Like I just got a bunch from the ground over there. So it sort of evens itself out, but it kind of feels like you should get a lot from the research objects, considering how much energy they take simply to research. I also should have a solar panel so I can recharge my batteries when I'm out and about, but that requires copper, and I don't know if copper is still available on the Terran planet. Maybe they switched that out in exchange for the zinc being on the Terran planet. Available on Silva and Calidor. What the heck is that? They changed the name of the planets? I would think that Silva would be the planet I'm on, because the root of that is Latin, Silva, and it means forest. But you'd think the Terran planet would be the forest planet, right? Yeah, this is just broken junk. There's research. I just call it research snap research. I guess it's called research sample. But I'm looking for some big boy research before I head back to base. There's some. Is that graphite? Just a random graphite? Is there any more? Graphite used to be on Terran, though it was rare. Looks like it's still the case. I got another tiny little bit there. Wait, is that a research in the middle of that tree? What? It is. Let's try that out. It's cool to play this game again and see so many just little things that are different or new. I haven't seen too much removed, which is always a big danger. If something you enjoyed gets removed from the game. All right. We've got a good amount of carbon now. Where did that go? Oh. I'll make a solar panel. I mean, not solar, turbine. Just something so I can get a little bit of power regeneration. I like how it was generating power just sitting here on the ground, but as soon as I put it there, nothing. All right. Medium storage is required. Whoops. We don't actually need you right now. Push that there. And there. Nope. No. No. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to do is start this. 360 bytes. So really, I think I'm in a position where I could leave this planet with a small shuttle. go and try and get some materials. I'm thinking that copper can't be found on this planet, even though I suspect that Terran is now called Sylvia. But I haven't seen any. Nope. They will blow around a little bit if there's a storm. But they don't blow far away. And also, another thing to consider is if I was to have a bunch of these medium storages freestanding here, and then I went out there, say to that mountain in the background, then they would be out of range of the game calculating any physics. So even if there was a storm over the base, it would not move these at all. Unless, of course, some of this changed. But I doubt they would change something like that. So you can just do this until you get yourself a nice extra large platform B. I also need to research the... I haven't found any ammonium yet either. That's a little bit of a problem, isn't it? So yeah, I guess there's stuff that I still need to find. But that's going to be it for now. Thanks again for hanging out. Diddles 1, 2, and 3. Might play again tomorrow and pick up where I left off in this game and also in this Stefan Molyneux train wreck of a call. Have I studied a lot of Latin words? Well, I took Latin 1 and Latin 2 in high school. I don't remember the vast majority of it, but I do remember a little bit of the vocabulary. I do not know how to do the declensions. In fact, I barely even knew them when I was taking the class, because it's really a lot to memorize. It's a mess. So I'll see you next time. Good night.